Welcome back to Master the Marketplace with Caspian.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Master the Marketplace with Caspian. I am super excited to invite to our show today a very special founder and Chief Commercialization Officer. I hope I got that name right, and you can correct me, Remington, if that's something else. Remington Tonar, who is a part of a very innovative company that I believe is adding some true value to the e-commerce space, cart.com. But I'm going to do horrible justice on introducing him. So Remington, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself?
Really appreciate it, and thanks again for having me on. Excited to talk to your listeners and your viewers about cart.com and any other topics that may come up during our conversation. But again, Remington Tonar, Chief Commercial Officer of cart.com. But for me, the title doesn't matter as much. I've already changed titles 3 or 4 times since we founded cart.com. I was employee number 1 of the company and have been in the unique position of being able to rotate to wherever the company needs me. And as we continue to expand and build new capabilities, my role has evolved and changed to help set up new capabilities, launch new services, launch new functions, and then we'll bring in somebody who can operate those functions on an ongoing basis, and then I roll off. So it's been a wild ride. But for the context for your listeners, cart.com is just about a year old now. Actually, we're still a very young company, but what we've set out to do is build what is really the first end-to-end e-commerce software and services company for direct-to-consumer brands. And when I say end-to-end, I mean everything from marketing and customer acquisition services and software. We have our own e-commerce storefront platform, similar to a Shopify or a BigCommerce or a Magento. We differentiate in a number of ways from all of those folks. And then we have 9 fulfillment centers around the country, where we have hundreds of employees picking, packing, shipping orders for direct-to-consumer merchants. And then we also offer customer service in our contact center as a service. And all of these offerings are integrated on the back end from both a people and process and technology perspective. So they're all the data flows from one part of the value chain to another. We have a piece of software that we call the unified console that actually aggregates the data from the fulfillment centers, from the marketing engines, the ad engines, and from your e-commerce storefront platform, your website platform, and pulls all that data into a centralized place where it can be monitored, managed. It serves up insights to help you make better decisions about how you're setting up your site, or how you're optimizing conversion rate, or how you can get better shipping times and SLAs given how things are going in the warehouse. So we've pulled together this entire value chain of software and services, ultimately, Kunal, to solve a huge problem in direct-to-consumer e-commerce, which is the fragmentation of all of these software and services, right? And as you know, Amazon is fantastic because you work with Amazon, and if you're using FBA, they do everything. They bring in the customers, they have the technology to help you transact business and list your products, and then they fulfill the products for you. There has been, before cart.com, there wasn't any similar level of end-to-end service on the D2C side, and that's what we're trying to solve.
That's fantastic. And it's truly a problem on the direct-to-consumer side, and it has been for a while. And really no one has thought through bringing together all these fragmented services into one place. And that's why I was so excited when we started conversing a few weeks back as well, just around your services. Just so fantastic to see that someone is solving this problem and bringing it all together. But Remington, before we get into the details, please tell everyone a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up? What got you to cart.com as employee number 1?
Right before Cart, I was working in the startup and venture capital community in Houston, Texas, where I am based. And that is how I met Omer, my co-founder and our current CEO. And Omer and I were actually involved in a number of startup ventures together as investors. We had invested and deployed some capital into a number of deals, and we're working alongside each other in that capacity. Before that, my background is mostly startup incubation incubators, venture capital. I spent some time in New York in consulting, growth consulting, innovation consulting. I've helped large multinational companies, and you've heard, Peter Thiel's term, like 0 to 1, 1 to 10, 10 to 100. I've helped a lot of companies at 100 get back to 0 when they need to become innovative again, operate more like startups. Sometimes you need to go back from 100 to 0. And then I've done a lot of work getting companies from 0 to 1. And so Omer and I were working together when, our other founder, co-founder, Jim Jacobson, who's a successful entrepreneur, has started and exited a number of companies, many of them in the D2C brand space. He came and said, hey, I have this idea to create a truly integrated e-commerce enablement company, right? That will aggregate capabilities, unify these capabilities, and essentially be the Amazon of D2C. And we said, wow, this is a multi-billion-dollar idea, and we have to drop what we're doing and go chase that down. And that's what we did.
That's fantastic. And it shows as well in your execution so far. Maybe remind our viewers, now you've raised capital. Tell us a little bit about the fundraising that you've done so far.
Yeah, so
and
we've
where
raised
are you in that
nearly
journey?
$150 million year to date, pretty much, and across 3 rounds: seed, Series A, and Series B. We've now topped 300 employees. We're somewhere in the 310 employee range. We've acquired 7 companies, which has helped fuel the rapid growth. But not only have we acquired these various capabilities, we've now invested millions in both kind of direct costs and personnel resources in enhancing and integrating all of these capabilities. Right? We don't want to be a private equity group that has disconnected capabilities where you can come and get them, but they're only loosely connected, and really you're just referred from company to company. We want all of these capabilities to be one cart.com offering that we go to market with, and you have one account manager, you have one dashboard, you have one experience, right? And all the data and people talk to each other. You can still buy our services and software a la carte if you want, but the real power comes when you buy them together, because cart.com has now done the hard and expensive work of acquiring these capabilities to achieve the economies of scale, right, necessary to have a more seamless experience and better economics. And we do as much as we can to pass those improved economics that we get through our scale onto our customers.
And all this has happened in less than a year, right?
We are coming up on a year now. We hired... I came on board as employee number 1 on November 1st. So on November 1st is when our team officially launched in 2020. And it's been a wild year. I can tell you, it feels like it's been more than a year. I feel like we've been at this for several years now. We call it cart time, it's my latest estimate is that 1 cart year is equal to about 3.9 standard Gregorian calendar years. So.
I love it. Great. I love the terminology cart time. Great. So Remington, speaking of, private equity groups and acquisitions happening in our space, e-commerce as a whole, I'm sure you've seen this aggregator space that has blown up over the last couple of years, and so much capital that has been raised there. But now reports are coming in that they're probably struggling at some level, of course, related to some supply chain issues that the industry is facing right now. But also the approach by many of the aggregators has been very private equity-like, as opposed to, what's the true value proposition? Yes. How do we truly get economies of scale? How do we try to integrate? What's your opinion on how that space has played out so far, and where do you think it's going to go?
To see the explosion in the brand aggregation space, and you've watched it carefully, has been very interesting. We're actually working with a number of those aggregators, both small ones and some of the larger ones right now, helping them improve the D2C capabilities of some of those brands, right? Because a lot of them are primarily Amazon focused, but a lot of those Amazon brands they're buying may have a small D2C presence that they want to do something with. They really don't want to have to worry about it though, and so we're taking that on for some of them. But what's interesting to your point is many of them have simply accumulated brands and built these large portfolios, but putting my D2C hat on, and this in some ways may be harder to do on Amazon, but on the D2C side, I think there are a tremendous number of opportunities to build portfolios, again, whether you're primarily Amazon focused or maybe multi-channel focused, to build a brand portfolio that has inherent synergy within the product set. Right? Where you can start cross-selling products, where you can start tapping into the customer databases of each of these different brands you're buying, right? And then accelerate the sales, get a flywheel effect by accelerating the sales by, selling different products in your portfolio across the rest of the portfolio. A lot of these brand aggregators have thought, purely in terms of back office efficiency. Hey, we're going to we can get rid of their accounting functions. We'll have one accounting group, right? But there's so many potential efficiencies on the front end, right, on the market-facing side with what they're actually selling that I don't think have been tapped into. And, some of them have a diversification strategy. They want to diversify into as many different categories as possible, and I appreciate that. But you can diversify while also having kind of related clusters or even very different types of products with similar customers, for example, where you can get more of these synergies. So I think that as these groups start to look for more economic advantages, they're going to start looking to, hey, what are we buying? How does it fit with the rest of our portfolio? How do we cross-sell across the rest of our portfolio? And then the other thing I think is going to happen is some of these aggregators are going to start bringing more capabilities in-house, right? Some of them are, maybe using Caspian for additional services, right? On the D2C side, they may be using cart.com. But I think in order to get the efficiencies that some of the larger ones are really looking for, their first inclination is going to be to try to insource this. But I do think ultimately what's going to end up happening is going to benefit companies like Caspian, like cart.com, because a lot of them are going to realize that, hey, yes, this idea of bringing more stuff in-house is very attractive, but it's very expensive. It's very hard to do. And it actually could turn our desired cost structure upside down, right? And so, the ones that want to run as lean of an operation as possible are going to continue to rely on trusted partners to help them fill in the gaps.
I agree. I've had so many conversations, not only with the brand aggregators, but just with individual brands who are on Amazon. And they talk a lot about, well, I want to diversify into Shopify or into direct to consumer, but they just don't know how to go there because there's all these complications around, well, how do I manage warehousing? How do I manage customer service? How do I not only acquire customers, but how do I retain them? And what's the marketing strategy around that? And I think that's why a service provider like yourself comes in and says, great, don't worry about all that. We'll take care of that for you. So, and I think it certainly opens up the market for a lot of these brand aggregators, but just individual brands to not fear D2C because there is a big opportunity in front of them.
We have the same thought about D2C brands that are interested in Amazon. Right? They have different fears, but they have fears and there's some uncertainty for them going into Amazon, right? I mean, is Amazon going to, come out with an Amazon Basics version of my product, right? How do I communicate with my customers if Amazon owns the data? FBA, how do I do FBA? I hear it's very expensive, right? And so there's a lot of questions people have about Amazon. At the same time, though, they realize that Amazon can unlock a tremendous amount of revenue for them. And I'm sure the same is true with some of these Amazon sellers in D2C. And that's why, and I think, we may have spoken about this before, cart.com sees the future being very, very multi-channel. Right. We believe in the multi-channel future. We believe in the multi-channel vision, and our philosophy and even some data we have with our own customers shows that a rising tide lifts all boats. And that if you're fueling growth on Amazon, that can have a positive impact on your D2C growth because ultimately the shopper just wants to buy what they want to buy, when and how and where and when they want to buy it, right? They don't actually care if it's on this or that platform or this. They just want what they want, when they want it, how they want it. And so, isn't it our responsibility as, customer-centric brands to then go out and allow those shoppers access to our offerings anywhere we can put it in front of them.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let me ask you another question related to what we are just talking about. Where do you see the future of brick and mortar fit into this omni-channel spectrum? And what's your opinion on where brick and mortar is going to fit in?
We went to Retail X a few months ago, a trade show, and at Retail X there was a really interesting mix of exhibitors. You had some exhibitors that were purely oriented towards brick and mortar retailers, like, racking and signage and, shelving systems. And then you had pure play e-commerce companies exhibiting there as well. And I thought that juxtaposition was interesting. And even though I'm not sure if it was highly effective in the form of a trade show, I do believe that, in the future, both, brick and mortar and e-commerce will, have a role in, commerce generally speaking. Look, the human being is still an embodied creature, right? We still live in space and time, and we need to touch things and interact with things once in a while. And this is why many of these D2C brands have opened up showrooms so that people can come in and get a more tangible, tactile sense of their products and their offerings. So I do think that brick and mortar, while it may change, it's definitely going to change. I think it's going to change format. It's going to change size. Maybe the big box shrinks down for a lot of retailers. Maybe the experience becomes mobile or in the form of pop-up retail, right? So I do think that physical retail is going to change, but I don't think it's going to go away. And I think that there's going to be an increasing demand to have deeper connectivity between digital commerce and brick and mortar commerce, right? And we have several customers that have hundreds of brick and mortar retail stores, right, across the country that we're running, direct to consumer e-commerce for, but also, helping them drive traffic to their physical stores. And again, because we think the rising tide lifts all boats, we don't see any competition there. You'll always have a little cannibalization, but in the end, what we believe is that the net growth of sales overall by being multi-channel more than compensates for any short-term cannibalization.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I personally believe that that brick and mortar at some level is just another, or the new brick and mortar is nothing but an extension of that omni-channel spectrum. So it's actually digitization is just a new way of looking at things. And if you just think about a connected ecosystem of different channels, brick and mortar is just one other node in that ecosystem. And it should be part of the entire customer experience, whether it's on marketplaces, whether it's direct to consumer, whether it's brick and mortar, the customer can shop wherever they want.
I want to get your thoughts on something. So, think of the term e-commerce. I have actually turned against the term e-commerce, right? Because I think it's like the term new media. Remember when we used to call things new media? Like Instagram and Facebook were new media. Now no one uses the term new media. It's just the media, E-commerce is almost anachronistic because isn't it just commerce? Like even brick and mortar commerce still has a digital POS that's connected to the internet, that's connected to a centralized inventory system somewhere, right? Everything in some sense is, electronic. Or digital, even if it's brick and mortar or primarily brick and mortar, there's a digital component to it now, and all of these things. To your point about them just being nodes, to me this is just commerce. This is what commerce looks like today. So e-commerce to me is almost a misnomer. It's just another type of commerce in this, to your point, in this network of commercial nodes.
Absolutely. So I'm completely with you, and that's how I see the world evolving. It's unfortunate that a lot of brands, and I interact with them too, just like you, that they still think of these channels as very disparate at some level. You have your brick and mortar. Well, we need someone for Amazon to manage that channel internally, and we need someone to manage our direct to consumer website. And they think about these different distribution channels as very separate. When you're absolutely right, it's a connected experience that your customers are going to go through across all these different nodes, and that's really how you're selling, and that's commerce as a whole. So I think it's an education. Hopefully it'll come over time, but in my opinion, that's the future. And tomorrow
Absolutely.
there might be new nodes. It could be AR, VR, or whatever else the future is. It's just another node in the experience that the consumer is going to take.
Customer journey, a lot of people think about the customer journey, in a through a mono-channel perspective, right? The customer journey is, this person, sees this or takes this action, ends up at either this website or maybe ends up at Amazon, and then this sequence of events happens. But, there's also like a meta journey that happens when a customer buys something on Amazon, but then sees the brand in a store, buys it again in the store, right? Then then becomes a fan of the brand and then, signs up for the subscription on the site, right? But maybe in between the subscriptions, they still buy it again on Amazon or at the store, right? There's like a meta journey that happens throughout all of the channels that can be mapped as well. And, we've seen a little bit of this where, we will have, our marketing services team will launch an advertising campaign for an omni-channel brand. And, if the campaign is oriented at driving traffic to just one channel, that results in sales lift of X, right? But if it's a campaign that's directed at calling out, hey, we're available on all these channels, right? The volume ends up being, X plus 2, because, it's, some people just maybe don't want to go and buy from the site. But if, they know it's in retail, they might find it in retail. Or if they know it's on Amazon, they might add it to cart next time they're shopping on Amazon. And so, that multi-channel connectivity, I think, is very important.
Absolutely. And Remington, what's your opinion on international and, where are we, some of the ideas we're talking about, which are fantastic. How do you see that extrapolate internationally? Are we behind there in certain countries? Do we still have to catch up? Or you think it's the other way around? What's your opinion on the international market right now?
I'll tell you, some of these, and as you know, there's some of these international markets that dwarf the U.S. market, right? Imagine you capturing 0.5% of the market in India in any category, right? You'd have to capture 10% of the U.S. market, to equate to the same volume. And yes, maybe in the U.S. your AOV can be higher, your price points can be higher, et cetera. But the potential for volume in other markets is enormous. There's also a lot of kind of commerce enablement trends in other countries that I think are interesting that I feel are actually not catching on as fast here, like social selling, for example. Social selling, you see a lot more social selling apps and startups coming out in India and Asia, in China and other places in Asia than you do here in the US. It's been very interesting to see some of the innovation in the social selling space, that's happening over in Asia that I haven't seen catch on as quickly here, for whatever reason. But, wonder what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. You're absolutely right. In fact, I was going to go to another point around, in China, for example, or even in India, you have these sort of super apps of sorts where you have one app where you're shopping, whether you're ordering a taxi, or ordering food. And in that, I think there's probably some trend that will start here as well, and we'll see some of that convergence happen. But that hasn't caught on here as well, where people are more used to a single point of interaction across all the activities that you do when it comes to commerce every day.
Imagine I'm just trying to innovate on some of those apps that exist. Imagine if you're in an Uber, right, and you're driving through the Uber, but as you're passing stores, right, it's the app is kind of geo fenced and is actually hitting you with various promotions based on kind of visual cues in your environment. There's so much you can do to connect things like mobility and commerce, right? And so I love the idea of connecting, whether it's mobility or some other type of common function that we use our phones for, but connecting commerce or integrating commerce into other environments, whether it's social, right, or social apps, mobile, mobility apps, inserting commerce or integrating commerce into those other experiences, I think is going to be pretty profound. You see some of it happening on Instagram already, right? I think they can go a lot deeper. I've seen a lot more startups in the connected TV space, but even even traditional television where your app can guide you to various products that you see on a show, right, in real time, and so kind of the deeper integration of commerce into everyday life is definitely, I think, at some point going to become a major trend.
Absolutely. And the beauty of that model at some level is that you already have the customer. You've acquired the customer, and to your point on being able to cross-sell, upsell them to various services while adding value to their life, so you don't have to have 10 apps on your phone and kind of switch between them. You have one central point to manage your day-to-day commerce activities, and combine, as like you said, mobility with some geofencing and hyper-local, and you have all these sort of things coming together. I think it's an exciting time.
It is, and
if you
this
think
is
about
one
all
of the
these
things
trends.
that we're doing on the D2C side with content, right? We've found content to be just a fantastic. Like we have some merchants that we're working with for whom like content is actually their product. Right now they have products and that's how they make money, right? But people are coming for the content, right? They come for the content and they happen to buy something, right? But it's the content that actually does the acquisition. And then, to your point, once you've acquired them through the content, then everything's an upsell. You're just upselling at that point.
Right. In fact, you've probably heard of Gary Vaynerchuk, who's obviously very famous in the content space, and he made this statement around that every company should be a media company, and if you don't think of yourself as a media company to acquire the customer in, and then like you said, everything is really an upsell from then on, but the acquisition point is through that through that media channel, which was I thought an interesting take on things.
And media can come in many forms, right? It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be expensive video, right? I mean, there's a lot of forms of media that companies can use, to accomplish just that. I mean, and I guess the simplest form is just good photography, right? Which, as you know, is still eludes many sellers out there. So, Yes, exactly. So, but even just, compelling photography that is intentional and thoughtful, right? I mean, that's a form of media itself.
Absolutely. So Remington, tell us a little bit about, and how much of it you can share here on the pricing model for carts. How do you think about, is it a subscription model? How do you think about that when it comes to working with your customers?
And of course, we get this question a lot. So the one thing I'll call out is customers can, in fact, purchase anything we offer a la carte. But the a la carte pricing is going to be very typical of each of those services. So if you're purchasing, our e-commerce storefront platform a la carte, it's a typical SaaS model, right? If you're purchasing, our marketing services, time from our marketing services group, that's going to could be, a very typical agency percent of ad spend type of model, right? Fulfillment might be, pick, pack, ship fee, right? Like very typical long-term storage fee. So our fees a la carte are pretty, I would say, market rate, industry standard models, right? Now, the interesting thing about cart.com, and kind of where the magic happens, if you will, is when people start combining services, right? Because we have these economies of scale, I don't need to make my margin on you 4 times. I just need to make it once, right? And so if you're an enterprise SaaS customer and, which is high margin for us, and you're on our SaaS platform, maybe you're using, our marketing services group, I can offer you to get you on my fulfillment platform, right? To kind of win your business on fulfillment. I can cut prices significantly because I don't have to make the same margin that every other 3PL wants to make. I've already made my margin on you on these other services, right? And so, it's those economies of scale where we can create benefits that we can pass on to customers, and start giving them some pretty compelling discounts across any of these service and software lines, if they're using us for more than one, because our economics are fundamentally changed, right, as you get more services. Think about what that does to, the LTV for us of one of our customers, right? And so that unlocks our ability to, really pass on powerful economic benefits.
And just so that our viewers know, do you have your own warehouses? Do you connect with other 3PLs? What does that work? How does that work?
So we pride ourselves on the fact that everything we're offering is entirely owned and operated by us. Right. So we're not a 4PL model where we're essentially outsourcing fulfillment, but managing it. We hold the leases on the facilities. It's our employees in the warehouse, right? It's our name on the door. Those are our facilities, our people, and our software. We're responsible. And same thing, on the marketing services side, customer service side, so almost everything we're doing, we are doing. Now, there are cases where we will partner, right? For example, if we have a customer that says, hey, I really need, some support on Amazon. Right, we might team up with a Caspian and say, hey, like we have this great partner that you can work with. So we're not afraid of partnership, but all of our core offerings are things that we own and operate and offer.
Great. And I know you folks have built a stellar team over the last year, 300 people you said. But talk a little bit about just and I'm a big fan of culture and leadership and I know in talking to Omer and yourself that you folks are too, but tell us a little bit about the culture at Cart and what kind of culture you're building at the company.
Fantastic question, Kunal. So our number one value is we are brand obsessed. And what we mean by brand obsession, and this is woven into the fiber of everything we're doing and why we're doing it, right? There's a lot of companies out there, a lot of software companies, like Amazon is customer obsessed. Like if you're a customer of Amazon and you use Amazon to buy products, you're going to have a phenomenal experience, right? Because Amazon really aims to create a fantastic customer experience. But for us, since we're B2B2C, right? I mean, our customers are other businesses. These are e-commerce brands that have differentiated products that, are selling direct to consumer. We aim to be brand obsessed. And for us, that means, doing everything we can to support brands, companies, right, that want to not just sell products, but sell stories, right? That don't just want to deliver the next widget, but, fulfill an experience that their customers are looking for, right? And this is the power of brand. And this is, where, the D2C element is really important because for brands, they need space to differentiate themselves, to talk about their story, right? To express through the user experience, through the UI of their website, right? To express, what they're trying to say to the market. It's harder to do on a marketplace, and some of them still do very well on Amazon, right? Don't get me wrong, but it is harder to be that expressive, control your environment via a marketplace, right? It becomes more difficult to, ship in your own container through FBA, for example, right? So, so we really live to be in the service of brands, of companies that want to sell, their stories as much as their products. That's very important to us. Another value we have is thinking beyond the box, right? Not just outside of the box, but we don't even want to reference the box, How do we get beyond boxes entirely and think, in ways that, may seem impossible, but are actually achievable when you start moving towards a goal. And, I think, that's been a primary driver of Cart and all of our employees. And that's really why we've been able to do so much in such a short period of time, is because there are things that a lot of people say, wow, that's going to be really difficult. I don't even want to take that on. And our mentality is, no, we actually think we can figure out a way to make that work, right? And so that thinking beyond the box is very important to us. And we try to weave that into how we interview candidates, right? I mean, how we do performance reviews, right. And recognition within the company, right? I mean, where are the folks who have demonstrated that they're thinking beyond the box and have demonstrated that they're brand obsessed, and so we try to live up, to all of our values and weave them into everything we're doing. And I think culturally for us, because as we've acquired a number of companies, and some of these companies have been around for decades.
Right.
And they came with their own culture, right? And we don't want to suffocate their existing culture, right? That would be a waste of an asset that they've developed over the course of their history and made those companies what they are today. At the same time, we need to make sure that these companies and all of their people quickly buy into the Cart vision, right? And understand what we're trying to do as one Cart.com collectively. And so that has been both a challenge for us, just given how quickly we're moving, but it's also been really unbelievable to see, right? I mean, people from Los Angeles and Beaumont, Texas, coming together to work on the same teams, right? To work and collaborate on the same projects for clients, and that's been really exciting to see.
That's awesome. So many similarities to how we run things. Of course, we don't have the acquisitions that you've done, but yeah, at Caspian it's the same thing. We have 7 leadership principles, and those leadership principles are really the foundation of how everyone works. Right from when you enter into the door, our interview process has those leadership principles built in on the decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis, to performance reviews and talent management. It's all done using the lens of those leadership principles. And of course, they are not set in stone. As the company evolves, we continue to change them, we refine them. But by and large, we've got a few principles that really ground us to
and I think,
how we want to take this
that's
company
an important
forward.
point, which is, these things can and should change, and they shouldn't change all the time, right? But they should be flexible enough where they can grow with the organization, and that's the only way that your culture or value systems are going to continue to be an asset to the company and not an anchor, right? I definitely appreciate that idea that, hey, like, these are things that are not set in stone, but they do ground us, right? But when we need them to, they propel us and don't hold us back, right?
Absolutely. Well, that was, I think, a perfect note to end this conversation on culture and values and teamwork and leadership. So, Remington, if brands listening to us, have to get in touch with Cart, they're excited about D2C, what's the best way for them to?
Well, they can definitely check out our website. It's easy to remember, Cart.com, and certainly reach out to us on LinkedIn. We love LinkedIn, very active on LinkedIn. So reach out to us on LinkedIn. But anyone out there who is interested in exploring D2C potential, we're happy to have a conversation and would be excited to do so. And again, thanks, Kunal, for this opportunity to talk to your audience. And this has been a great conversation.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Remington, for coming onto the show. And thank you, viewers, again, for joining us on another episode of Master the Marketplace. I'm sure we will see you again very soon. Thank you, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Through conversations with experts in online retail, with years of marketing, compliance, and inventory management experience, we seek to empower our listeners to master the marketplace. Thanks for listening. We hope to see you next time on Master the Marketplace with Caspian.